Mentoring in Higher Education by Tara Brabazon. This chapter is in the SAGE Handbook for Gender and Education, SAGE 2025. Mentoring is an institutionally sanctioned relationship between the empowered and the disempowered. Mentoring has two parties, the mentor and the mentee. A mode of socialization, mentoring activates and perpetuates particular languages, behaviours, models of work, and the definitions of success. When situated in educational environments, mentoring perpetuates asymmetrical power relationships, with men dominating presidential, provost, vice-chancellor and pro-vice-chancellor positions. Mentoring must be gendered. The patriarchal structures of higher education, where women dominate teaching and administrative functions rather than research and leadership roles, ensure that mentoring communicates masculine ideologies to feminine mentees. This entry explores why mentoring exists and its impact and consequences on the maintenance of asymmetrical power relationships in universities. A developmental relationship. Mentoring summons a developmental relationship. While coaching is a short-term directive style of development with measurable outcomes, agreements and accountabilities, mentoring is more open-ended and ambiguous. Mentoring is built on valuing the relationship between an experienced and less experienced person, and then assuming that this experience is transferable and valuable. This relationship has no alignment with age. One worker has more knowledge or competency than the other. This competency is then shared through meetings and communication events. Mentoring can incorporate career guidance or role modelling. Indeed, mentoring is an ambiguous word that incorporates a diversity of behaviours and actions. As shown by Ken Blanchard and Claire Dias-Ortiz, there are 5 modes of mentoring: peer-to-peer, adult to adolescent, master to apprentice, cross-generational mentoring, and company-based mentoring. Significantly, all but the first category pass information, knowledge, and culture from the experienced to the less experienced. Noting career interruptions through caring responsibilities alongside glass cliff and glass labyrinth career progressions, women's capacity to offer translational and transactional knowledge to other workers is neither defined nor precisely configured. There are multiple points of failure through all these models of development. Mentoring fails because the objectives of the process are not clear and the strategies for communication, meetings and conversation are not shared. There are 4 areas of mentoring failure: lack of interest, poor participation, unrealistic expectations, and failure to align mentoring with an organisation's strategic objectives. This last rationale for failure is not only intriguing, but honest. The meta-goal of mentoring is not only to action personal development, but to provide the professional literacy and discipline to fit into an organisation. Mentoring attempts to shape, shave and mould an individual away from distinctive personal motivations and into corporate goals. Feminism, through much of its history, has resisted, intervened and problematised business as usual that validated patriarchal normalities. Feminist modelling is indeed oxymoronic. Mentoring has 3 stages. The first stage is setting the trajectory for the mentorship and building the relationship between the mentor and the mentee. Stage 2 is the configuration of a support structure between the mentor and the mentee, moving the mentee from dependence and uncertainty and into independence and clarity. This stage includes decisions about the modes of communication, the platform for meetings and their frequency, and the definitions of success and achievement. The final stage is the conclusion of the relationship and the release of the mentee into independent career progression. These 3 stages are linear and progressive. They also construct a normative agenda, patrolling the margins, crushing resistance, and marginalising outlier behaviours. The personal experience of senior people is rendered relevant and meaningful to more junior colleagues. Lessons and advice are passed from one person to another. Noting the domination of men in university leadership roles and professorial appointments, gendered knowledge twists within this normalised and normalising mentoring experience. Mentoring as workplace socialization. Mentoring is a salve for injustices that are rarely named. Bullying, sexual harassment, sexual assault, academic misconduct, research misconduct punctuate higher education. Restructures and permadocs, rather than short-term postdoctoral posts, are as common as strategic plans and vision statements. This is no longer a benevolent, if cliched, ivory tower. Instead, the dueling ideologies of neoliberalism and patronage constrict the potential of universities to become an institution that enables national economies and values international scholarly standards. During an academic career, scholars have the privilege of teaching thousands of undergraduates and hundreds of postgraduates. The future of so many citizens can be transformed by an undergraduate or graduate degree. Yet the universities as a workplace are managing a wide ideological and operational abyss between goals and outcomes, vision and reality, motivation and outputs, aspirations and deliverables. Mentoring is positioned in this space of disappointment, ambivalence and confusion, providing the justifications and support for the casualisation, the adjunct workforce and leadership disconnection from followership. It is a way to socialise inexperienced students and scholars into normative workplace patterns. These are based on the life and career trajectory of a married heterosexual man, supported in his career by his wife. Mentoring is gendered. Structural injustices exist in higher education that can be labelled as misogyny, transphobia, xenophobia and ageism. These institutional asymmetries are rarely addressed as an historical legacy. Instead, individuals are held accountable and responsible for their lack of promotion, achievement and merit. If they do not work hard enough, then they will not be successful in a competitive higher education sector. If these assumptions about success are validated, then individuals are personally responsible for addressing their professional weaknesses, mediocrity and non-compliance. Mentoring is an institutional program to individualise collective and structural inequalities. Not surprisingly, this individual is successfully masking institutional injustices. Through mentoring, individual staff are more likely to be promoted. The reason for that individual success is important to address. Market economies activate multiple injustices validated through competition. As higher education is increasingly marketised, gender inequalities infuse the construction and dissemination of knowledge. These inequalities are rarely named or recognised. University mentoring schemes rarely target or name women, men, trans or non-binary identifying academics. Success and promotion are defined through institutional benchmarks and key performance indicators that are neither marked nor shaped by gender and sexuality. Instead, multiple metaphors are used to excuse the lack of or lagging progress for historically disempowered and marginalised groups. Leaky pipes, sticky floors, glass ceilings, glass cliffs. Mentoring is an institutional solution to address these structural problems. Through these clichés, the interface between mentoring and gender is inelegant and ensures that historical inequalities are maintained. The benefits of mentoring and workplace compliance. Noting these historical legacies, the literature confirms that mentoring programs produce benefits for mentors and mentees. The description of these positive consequences remains anchored in self-help maxims such as building self-esteem, finding encouragement, and increasing networking. Research in the mid-2000s confirmed mentees revealed higher rates of promotion and allowed women to address institutional inequalities. This research situated the unequal distribution of appointment and promotion opportunities as an issue for individual women, rather than foundational to the history of higher education. Instead, through mentoring, individual women increased their confidence and networking, ensuring career success would follow. Mentoring fixed women so that they could be promoted within patriarchal structures. Mentoring is a panacea that assumes that the expertise of a mentor is generalizable and of relevance to a mentee. There is an institutional meta-agenda for these initiatives. Early career researchers who undertake mentoring view their work environment more positively. They comply with the key performance indicators for research in particular. The skills taught through mentoring programs are basic: networking, time management, social media use, and public presentation skills. The methodology for mentoring is a shared experience. It is assumed that the experience of one academic has value for another. Yet contexts, life trajectories, and global patterns differ widely. The widening participation agenda, globalisation, the movement of international students, and the increase in PhD qualified women have created a very different university sector in the 21st century. Yet mentoring enables the maintenance of a system created for white, upper, middle-class men through the overvaluing of experience. While the workforce changes, the face of power does not. The generalizability of professional experience. Mentoring provides a human face to the precariat higher education workforce. If a great mentor can be summoned, then their contacts and experience will provide the pathway to a new job, or at least a postdoctoral opportunity. This logic is flawed. Mentoring is based on the premise that the experience of academics applies to the present lives of academics. Generalizing from a data set of one, there is an assumption that a personal career narrative has relevance and currency beyond one individual, a singular historical moment, and a specific location. Experience is a deceptive mistress. How transferable and translatable is one human's experience? International higher education has transformed through the 21st century. Mentoring rarely acknowledges or validates this diversity. The casualisation of the higher education workforce, the rise of adjuncts, the reduction in the length of contracts for academic staff, and repetitive restructures means that expectations and assumptions have transformed. Mentoring perpetuates a lie about this historical change. Gortsky described mentoring as, quote, code language for assimilating, end of quote. Part orientation, part succession planning, it is a strategy to build a relationship, allegiance, and dependency between an employee and an organisation. It acknowledges a deficit or a gap from a normative standard of development and performance. This mode of socialization through mentoring constructs specific pathways, techniques, and achievement arcs to succeed in higher education. Experience versus expertise. The transferability of experience is the building block for mentoring. The hyper-individualism of higher education through H-indices, ORCIDs and altmetrics overemphasises the value of experience to the detriment of expertise. The challenge to address in any discussion of mentoring is the differentiation between experience and expertise. Because an academic event happens, such as a long peer review process for an article or an awkward job interview, does not mean that this experience can and should be shared or has value when expressed to other academics. Experience is simply experience. It could be a terrible experience. It may be emotionally volatile, thereby blocking a deeper reflection beyond a saturated, hypersensate moment of fear, panic, or despair. Expertise is different. It is founded on knowledge and is evidentially driven. It arches beyond the self and requires research, interpretation, and verification. Feelings are arbitrary yet intense. Knowledge is verifiable, cool, referenced, repeatable, and accountable. Mentoring focuses on sharing rather than knowing. Yet, the shared experience of empowered academics is valued. It is also an appropriate methodology for under-regulated universities performing the actions of care and compassion, rather than demonstrating these attributes through a fair wage, controlled working hours, respect for families and caring responsibilities, and annual leave that can be taken without pressure to answer emails or remain contactable. Mentoring as a communication system. If mentoring is to be successful in any form, then it requires attention to communication events and how they build into a communication system between the mentor and the mentee. Authentic and meaningful communication systems enable professional relationships. The challenge of every communication system is semiotic leakage and miscommunication. How a message is sent is not how it is received. Senders and receivers may exchange a message, but only verify its meaning if they share a language, context, background, experience, and disciplinary expertise. The foundational definition of mentoring is that the mentor and the mentee are in different stages of their professional lives. Therefore, that context overlap does not exist. The capacity for miscommunication is high. There are multiple nodes and modes of difference, interference between the sender and the receiver. At its best, mentoring works to develop an alignment of values, personalities, and modes of communication. The power differential in the mentoring relationship is clear when investigating the nouns used to describe the person receiving mentoring, such as a protege or apprentice. The transition model of communication in mentoring works from the premise that the mentors and the mentee share a language, a discourse, and a context. They share goals and aspirations. However, there is always interference, a difference between sender and receiver. Gender is one of these differences that blocks a simple and verifiable transmission of ideas. One key marker and determinant of promotion and seniority in higher education is being a man. The more senior the person working in a university, the more likely they are to be a man. Because the person who mentors are more experienced in an institution, conventional power structures are maintained and differences dismissed or displaced. This means that patriarchy and misogyny are the punctuation of mentoring. The standards and values of the past live in the present. In the moment of a precariat and casualised workplace and higher education, of hyper-short-termism and instability, mentors are being used to support, enable and develop workers for a higher education system that no longer exists. Past ambivalence and new models. New models are emerging to enable development, including induction programs based on procedures, policies and performance expectations. A series of online training opportunities, including just-in-time training to enable technological innovation and just-in-case training to enable career progression, provides pathways to skill development. Regular performance management with clear expectations and overt support strategies to meet them are also required. Other models of personal and professional development are available. Coaching is a distinct methodology from mentoring, focusing on the individual's goals rather than how an individual's work practices and ideologies of success can align with an organisation. Mentoring has value, but its role in perpetuating patriarchal standards and patterns is clear. Mentoring supports career ambitions, boosts confidence, broadens perspectives, provides safe conversational spaces, and encourages experimentation within organisational parameters. Yet the etymology of the word mentor is much more ambivalent. Mentor was a character in Homer's Odyssey. He was a trusted friend of Odysseus, who was left in charge during his absence. Mentor, the character, was an old man who failed to complete the tasks required of him. Indeed, havoc and ruin punctuated his leadership. He was not a strong communicator. He failed. Significantly, Mentor's success in Odyssey emerged when Athena disguised herself as Mentor and he guides Odysseus' son to find his father. From this chaotic origin, the benevolent semiotic system currently encircling the word mentor emerged much later in literary history. The popular writing of Mentor's success emerged through Fenelon in 1699. This book popularised the travels of Odysseus' son and his wise advisor, Mentor. In this later book, Mentor is a hero, a wise guide. It is from this rewriting of Homer that the current ideology of mentoring emerges. Why continue mentoring? It is a profound twist of history and management theory that has resulted in mentor being a model for achievement, support, and a foundational methodology for professional development. Built on a rewriting of Homer's Odyssey, mentoring gained a profile and importance in the United States in the 1970s as part of management theory. This historical moment is important as this decade signalled the movement of women and minorities, particularly workers of colour, into the workplace. One solution to manage a sociologically diverse workplace was mentoring. This mentoring was a strategy to enable those workers who were not white to learn from white men the implicit rules of the workplace. White men would mentor other people to help them become more like white men. Because the person who mentors is more experienced in the institution, this is a strategy to maintain conventional power structures. Mentoring is an empty bucket that carries some historical and ideological baggage from 1970s management theory. Noting the cycles of economic, professional and global upheaval since the pandemic, what is the place and role for mentoring in the present? This is a productive question. If a mentor is deployed, what are their functions and their purpose? How does mentoring shape the definitions of personal and professional success? If mentoring is a mode of support, then the next question is even more significant. What functions, behaviours or actions will be completed through this support? Universities are moving through multivariant crises. Most significantly, there is a crisis of purpose. Higher education is servicing industry, masking unemployment, managing underemployment, and providing taxpayer-funded research and development. This crisis of purpose in universities is much like the crisis in the United States business sector in the 1970s when women and minorities entered corporations. A solution was to mentor disenfranchised workers so that they were socialised into a particular narrative of achievement, of success, of time management, of task management, and promotion. The higher education workforce is volatile. Contracts are unstable. Restructures and resultant redundancies are common. The time to celebrate and promote academics on the basis of teaching excellence, research track record, administrative and community service has now passed. The generalizability and the transferability of any mentoring advice must be probed. Aspirations, goals, and individuality can be lost, displaced, or parked through the socialization of mentoring. If the goal is to fit in and be compliant, then mentoring will enable that success. If the goal is innovation, imagination, and the development of new knowledge, then risk-taking will be required and a different path forged.